Ellistronics.
Welcome to the Ellistronics podcast.
Ellis.
Crikey.
Tronics.
Me mum's a dingo.
Welcome to the Ellistronics podcast. Well, we must be up to episode 70 or 80 by now.
6. Sorry.
I was close.
Yeah. May as well be.
Our guest this week, Rebecca Bender, is an author, a public speaker, a practicing Christian minister, the mother of 4 children.
Wow, where'd you get this from? I'm just curious.
From RebeccaBender.org.
Okay.
Is anything wrong so far?
I mean, that's probably not how I describe myself. That's
Okay, well, why don't we...
like what your mom would say.
Sure, how many kids you got?
I got 4, yeah.
All right, well, we got that right.
Yep.
Are you a Christian?
I'm an ordained minister, yes.
Of a Christian denomination?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so
okay.
what's up? What's your problem? What's your beef?
I don't like religion.
What did we miss?
I don't like religion, and it
Ooh.
sounds very like religious when you
Okay.
say it that way.
It did, because I was like, oh, God, why is she here? She's
I was kind of
me.
thinking the same thing when he said that.
Did you get a master's degree in some sort of religious study?
I'm currently in my last year
Okay.
of seminary for biblical studies, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I kind of want to shake the Christian world up a little bit, though. So.
Okay, we'll talk about that. I'm under the impression that you are the founder of the Rebecca Bender Initiative. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Which is a nonprofit benefiting survivors of human trafficking.
So far, so good.
Okay, you have written a book called Roadmap to Redemption, which details the nearly 6 years you, Rebecca, spent yourself as a victim of domestic sex trafficking here in the U.S.
Boom. Got that right. Good job.
That is...
Yes.
The rest of it, fine, great, whatever. That is an amazing sentence to say out loud to a fellow human being.
I thought I was fucked up, but you win.
Dude, I'm really messed up.
Yeah.
Just ask my husband.
I don't even feel worthy right now. This is crazy.
So, I mean, I guess we just start at the beginning. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Oregon, a pretty small town, normal, kind of middle class kid.
That's why you have those tattoos?
No, I got these at my 10 years clean and sober.
Oh, okay. I'm 146 days.
Clean and sober?
Yeah.
Nice job. Boom. I'm, when I get clean, 2002, so I'm on 14 years, dude.
Wow.
It's a long time.
You're a champion.
Yes, sir. So, I was born and raised in Oregon, small town, just normal kind of middle-class kid. My dad worked at the lumber mill. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She taught aerobics on the side. Really no big deal. My parents divorced when I was 9 due to my dad's alcoholism and probably a variety of other things, but that typically is just the easiest way sometimes to tell the story. But that was the most amount of trauma in my life. I think sometimes when we think about sex trafficked people, we imagine, children getting kidnapped and locked in brothels or only from foster care. But I was just your average all-American kid. I was a cheerleader, played varsity sports, was a soccer player, run track, graduated a year early on the on honor roll. And I was accepted into Oregon State University. So my family was all excited for the future, and so was I. And that summer, I got pregnant by my boyfriend, and I had to make a real tough decision at 17 because I'd graduated early, whether I was going to have an abortion and go off to school like with my friends and pretend like nothing happened, or keep my kid and stay in this small, tiny, sleepy town where, teen moms weren't nearly as common as, 16 years ago. And I chose to keep my daughter, which is pretty surprising because I was not raised in a faith-based home at all.
Okay.
And that put me in kind of a vulnerable situation because now here I am, an 18-year-old girl trying to put myself through college, an 18-year-old single mom trying to put herself through college. And my friends who moved off to the U of O, go Ducks, go Beavs, that's where our Oregon kind of folks come in, right? They all moved out of the dorm room after I had my daughter, and they moved into an apartment. They had an extra room available, so they invited me to move up with them to Eugene, U of O. And it was on the college campus, party near the college campus, that I met the most amazing man. He was charming and he was funny. He drove a nice car. He always picked up the tab. And everything was about me and the baby. Chuck E. Cheese, parks, dates were all about the family. And here I was, this girl who came from a divorced home that I really wanted, for me, a nice family for me. And here I am, a single mom, really wanted a good home for my daughter. And that was the vulnerability. And in hindsight, this man came to a college campus specifically because it's on college campuses that you kind of sneak under the radar. Everyone's new. No one knows your backstory. Everybody's
How old
believing-
is this man at the time?
He was 24 when I was 18.
Kind of old to be. Maybe not that old.
Not that old. I mean,
if it's
yeah.
a state school,
He
people
mixed
could be
in well, right?
5-6 years
Yeah,
students.
totally mixed in well.
Okay.
But I think that he purposefully looked for, there's a girl with a kid. That's a vulnerability.
Right.
I'm going to target that one because it's something I can hold against her later.
Okay.
So he dated me for 6 months, which is
Yeah.
quite a long time, getting to know your hopes and your
Especially
dreams.
when you're
and-
18.
yeah. And I fell in love,
Right.
right? I mean,
No red flags whatsoever.
no red flags. I mean, now that I'm a healthy adult, sure, I could probably tell you about 15 things that were red flags. But at the time, it was just cuddling on the couch and doing things as a family. And I thought, this is it. Like, I've met the one. Yay, the tables are going to turn for me. And he invited me to move in with him at 6 months. And then suddenly he said his job was taking him to Las Vegas. So we packed up the baby and we moved to Vegas.
You were not studying anymore? Or
No, I was in like a community college at the time. I wasn't at U of O ever.
So when you were going to Vegas, was that the end of you furthering your education?
No, we were going to maybe transfer or,
Okay.
you know, so
he did bring, like, he tried, because you obviously were like, what about my education?
I mean, it probably when you're, I think, a single mom in love that's, you know,
I'd
working.
be out. If I was you, I'd be out. I'd be like, well, we've made it. I don't need
Right.
education.
I mean, it wasn't the first thing on my mind. No,
Okay.
it was
Okay.
more like, I'm in love.
Right.
He has a lot of money. Oh
Yeah,
my
you're
gosh, we're
young.
going to get
He's
married and
taking
have
care of
another
your daughter.
baby.
Sure.
Yeah,
He was
absolutely.
like being a supportive boy, like feeding,
Yeah, like a
like
father
not just
figure.
like a girl, you know, I mean, like the kids crying, like he was actually.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Total con artist.
So you moved to Vegas.
So we moved to Vegas. His brother helped us move, helped pack up the apartment and drove the U-Haul. And when we arrived, he said, leave the baby with my brother. The day we arrived, leave the baby with my brother. I want to take you out and show you the city and show you the town. And I'm from a small town in Oregon. We have 35,000 people in my town. Like I'm from, right? All the lights of Vegas. First time I'd ever been there. It was kind of like New York City. I mean, it was like, wow, this is so cool. Adventure, excitement. I was intrigued. So he's like, get dressed up. I'm going to show you. And I got my friend's fake ID, right? Like I'm 18, 19. I'm going to go to Vegas. And he drove me to a dead-end street and physically abused me and forced me to prostitution that night.
Wait, everything is rosy,
Right.
and when does, I'm assuming this is some sort of switch that he flicks on, like or did you sense it on the drive there? Did you sense it on the way to Vegas? Was he starting to get cold?
Right.
Or are you saying like, let's go, baby, on the town, get your fake ID, get dolled up, and then he pulled over down a dark street and shit whipped you and said you're now a prostitute?
Well-
and you had no idea that this was coming at all.
Well, it's very manipulative the way that traffickers work. They're very, very good at what they do. It's how the guy got everyone to drink the Kool-Aid in Waco. It's how Hitler controlled thousands. Right? It's not so cut and dry. Flip the switch. Suddenly he's someone else. It's not Jekyll and Hyde. It doesn't work like
so
that.
how does this happen? Please, like, was there threesomes before this? Was there
No.
anything
No.
that gave you an inkling that this was going to happen down that road?
No. So when we got there and we moved the stuff and
Yeah.
the U-Haul had pulled up, left the baby with his brother. We drive to this dead-end street and he kind of pulls the truck around and stops. And I'm like, we're going to have a talk or, right, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of excited and I'm not really noticing much because I'm looking at all the lights. And he's like, hey, so I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what's going on, right? Suddenly I'm like that pit in your stomach. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
He's like, I spent a lot of money to get you here. Like I put first and last on the apartment. I filled the fridge with food. I got all this furniture. That was money I was going to use for my job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was like putting you out like that. He's like, that's okay. But see this door over here with the camera above it. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, this is an escort service. But don't worry. It's nothing like the movies. It's really not a big deal. It's just like dancing around. I mean, don't act like you're a virgin when I met you. It's just like being in a bikini at the pool. That's what he said.
Okay.
And I was like, but escort, like that's kind of like prostitution.
Yep.
Like, I'm cool. I don't mind maybe dancing. Because at this point, right, my boundaries had definitely had been to frat parties.
Yep.
And, right, no big deal. I'd already
he
been
did say
using, I'd already tried cocaine by then. Like,
He said the word escort,
said the word escort, not prostitute ever.
but you were 18. You knew what that meant.
But I was like, then he said it's like dancing, and this is how it works in Vegas.
Oh,
like,
okay,
Cities
okay.
are Eugene's different. This is what he's saying to me. I'm just telling you
Yep,
what he's
no.
saying to me, and I'm a young naive girl from a small town, right?
Okay.
Like in Vegas, this is how it works. This is how dancing works here, and it's just like dancing at a frat party, but you're in a hotel room, and I'll be there because I love you. to make sure you're safe.
Okay.
So it's just dancing. It's like a dance booking agency.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, still, that sounds like prostitution. I'm cool. And that's when he slapped me across the face for the first time.
And it just like and he'd never been angry with you before?
No.
And he just slapped you and was like, "You're going?"
It's like, you're getting my money back.
And so right there, you're like,
So right in that moment, I thought, I don't know my address by heart yet. I don't know where my baby is.
You're
I don't know how
right.
to get back to my baby. That was the first thing that went through my
because
mind.
you're initially thinking, "I'm out of this bullshit."
Right. Well, I mean, a couple things go through your mind, I think, as an 18-year-old girl in love, especially very similar to suddenly for me personally, I suddenly identified as domestic violence.
Okay.
Right? Why do women stay with men that hit them?
Yeah.
Because you're in love and you're promised that it will end. Right? And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I just get this money back, then things will go back to how they used to be. Right. And this dangling dream that was in front of me, like, I don't want that to go away. Like this family that I'd been wanting for since I found out I was pregnant and my boyfriend bailed, right? Like that's what you're hoping to, it'll go back to tomorrow. Yeah. Or if I just get the money back, then things will go back and things will go back to how they used to be. So it's like, it's this trickery and this, it's like suddenly you've realized you've been conned. So it's that shame of like, how could I be so freaking stupid?
Yeah.
And yet I'm in love with this person and I just want things to go back. And wait, I don't know actually where my baby is. So it's like all of this hits you in the blink of an eye. And people fight, flight, or freeze when in the middle of, you know what I mean? You don't know what you're going to do.
Nobody
does. And so I complied. I went in and signed up. Like, all right, I just want things to go. No.
You walked in by yourself?
Well, it's just a door that you sign up for an escort service.
Oh.
It's not like, yeah. So you walk in and the lady's like, this is just dancing. Read this paper. It says only dancing. There's no sex here. And if you do anything, then we'll fire you.
So that's
the way they stay legal in Vegas.
Oh, so she's saying that to an 18-year-old. So you're thinking you're in the clear. I can do this.
Right. I'm thinking I'm 18. I'm
he
dancing.
He shouldn't have hit me. I'm going to get out of here. But still, at least I'm not being a prostitute. That's because it must have sounded scary when you said escort.
I mean, even here's the hard part. Like, I think, again, going back to like why women stay in domestic violence, I didn't even think like, I'm going to get some money and get out of here. I'm thinking, I just want it to go back to how it was for the last 6 months of him being nice.
Oh, wow. You want to patch things up.
I want to patch things up. I want to make this right. I want to get that money back for him so he won't be mad. Maybe that's why he's stressed. I mean, you do all that excuse making like a lot of women caught in violent relationships, right? I mean, not the first woman in a violent relationship.
But this like comes back to the way you were raised, right? Because, I mean, if you had a dad that was like, you never let a man touch you, then you know that that's the end of it. But you were like, maybe these are the things that you go through when you have a relationship.
Oh, totally. I mean, after my mom and dad, so my dad was sometimes an angry alcoholic. He never hit my mom, but he would throw things against the wall. And then my mom got a boyfriend right after him that did beat her. And so I had seen her hit a couple times. And I'm thinking, well, this must be how adults, like relationships work, right? Because I haven't really had a major adult relationship until now. And now a child's involved. And so I'm like, well, I'd seen that happen. This must be how you fight. I don't know, healthy ways to have arguments at this point in my life. Right. So,
this may be skipping ahead a little bit, but now, do you know now, was this the first time that this guy had done this with a girl?
No, he already had a girl there.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't know about it.
So he went down to that campus to look for another one.
Yeah, that was his entire intention. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Okay. So you sign the book and she says, no sex. And then where do you go?
Just dancing in a room. Give me your phone number. You write your name. It's an office, right? And it's smoky and there's desks butted up next to each other and there's women like, pretending to talk sexy on the phone, but definitely not like the movies you see with, women who definitely don't look
phone
sexy.
Sex operators.
Yeah, it looked like that.
Okay.
So those little cards that get handed out in Vegas. Okay, so those are mostly trafficked women. So you get those. So you get that card, and you're like, dancer direct to you for $79. So you call the number as a dude in a hotel, right? Especially if you have a bachelor party or you're there for business by yourself, whatever. And it's one of these ladies. She's like, this is Candy, And you're like, awesome, Candy, can you come over? And she'll say, yeah, what card do you have? There should be a code on the card. That actually gives a fee to the guy that stood there and handed you the card. He gets a percentage. It's a referring fee.
Okay.
So she goes to the board. There's a dry erase board on the wall, and it says blonde, brunette, redhead, Asian, exotic. So it's kind of just like ordering a pizza at this point. So I'll take one 5'4", 120 pounds, 36 double D. Do you have anyone with braces? Sometimes guys would ask that. Like, how young can you send them? you have anyone with braces?
Like
Can
that's
she wear
that's code for
Right.
really young.
Can she wear pigtails? Can she pretend to be younger? Oh man, sick stuff. So the girl looks on the board to see who's on for the night. So for me, when I signed the paper, I wrote my fake name and phone number under brunettes. But the phone number was my trafficker's. I didn't have a
Okay.
Vegas number yet.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got back out to his car, the phone rang immediately, that fast. And he drove me to my first call.
Holy shit.
He waited out in the driveway of a private residence. So it was a townhouse. And I can remember he parked kind of back a little bit from the driveway so that the guy couldn't see him. And he's like, this is how it works. And he starts explaining like how you collect the office. It's called a drop, how you pick up your drop, how you have to give the phone girl 20% of your cut. So he starts explaining it. And I'm thinking, I don't have a freaking clue what's going on here. Like, wait, hold up. What do you mean $600? Like, we're dancing. What do you mean? What's going on? You know? And he's going so fast and we're there. And I'm like, okay, but you're going to be there. And he's like, yeah. So I walk up to the door. And again, right, like I grew up in the culture like everyone else. I saw Pretty Woman. I've seen, I'm imagining this big, fat, sweaty, salami smelling, unbuckle your belt buckle underneath this big belly, right? Yeah. And this like really hot guy answered the door.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'd date this guy if I would have ran into him on campus. I would have dated this dude, right? I mean, he was like also about 24. I remember he had wavy black hair and he looked like a high school quarterback. He was like, looked like that. And he was like, come on in, real nice. And he sat down and he gave me the $150 fee to send a dancer direct to you. Okay. So mind you, everyone's using this dancer term. So I start dancing, like lap dance. I'm not really, and I'm in my go out for the night outfit. Like I'm in a skirt and high heels because I thought we were going to the club. Yeah. I'm in my best clubbing outfit, And he kind of looked at me like, what? And I just remember he grabbed me around the waist and like pulled me on top of him. And I just froze. Honestly, I was just like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, he pulled out his wallet and he put out some more money. And I just remember freezing. And he had sex with me. And I can remember just wanting it to end as fast as possible. Like whatever I need to do to just have you hurry up. Right? Like if I need to smile and pretend to moan, I'm going to do that because I just want to get out of here. Like wasn't expecting this at all. And I grabbed the money and ran, still dressed. Like all he did was pull my underwear to the side because I was wearing a skirt. Not to be like graphic on the radio.
It's okay. We're allowed to do all this stuff. We're on the radio and the podcast. But I'm trying to. I mean, you said he was attractive.
Yeah.
And you realize you're dancing, and then you realize, wait, it's not dancing. Is he raping me, or is this I've been scammed into this deal?
Yeah.
This guy's doing what he thinks he's supposed to be doing. Were you aware of that?
I mean, I don't honestly remember any thoughts in that moment. I just felt like I just want this to hurry up and end. I mean, you can tell, like I'm shaking talking about the incident right now. It's that one first time. And a lot of traffickers will tell you or people, they'll say, we just got to get them to do it the first time. It's easy after that. First time is all we got to get them to. And so it was just all shock. And I can't even remember what I thought. I think I just froze and I think my brain froze and I don't even really remember how I felt. I just remember I want this to hurry up. Whatever I need to do to get this to hurry up. So you get over with it.
You take the money, you run out of there, and you go to your boyfriend, and you obviously tell him he fucking had sex with me.
I'm like, this wasn't dancing.
Right.
And he takes the money and he's like, oh, you'll do better next time. And I felt like you're looking right now. I was just like, next time? Like, and so, and I think I thought, again, trauma's a weird thing, so it makes your brain do weird stuff in the moment. But I knew $300 wasn't enough to earn the money back that it cost to move us. And I remember crying, and I remember just wanting to get home to my baby. That's all I can remember at that moment.
And then you're going to go back to work again that night, or are you done for the night?
I don't even remember the rest of the night, honestly. I think trauma sometimes does that to your brain.
But the second time, there's more than one time in the story, right?
Oh, I was ended up being beaten and sold to another trafficker. Both of them tattooed their names on my back. I have both of their names on my back.
Wait, so somebody has oh, man.
6 years I was sold in Las Vegas through escort services.
Were these, to you, boyfriends?
The first one was.
None of the others were at all.
I think after I ended up getting sold to the second trafficker, something happens. It's called trauma bonding or capture bonding or Stockholm syndrome, right? Why the people fell into protecting the guys that held him hostage in Stockholm, Germany. I'm sure you're familiar.
Sure, Petty-Hearst syndrome.
Right. It's that happens. It's like he hurts me and he beats me and he forced me to do these awful things, and at the same time he's also the only person that feeds me and the only person that I can like cry to and celebrate Christmas with and also be with when something bad happens. Like he ends up making himself the only one for you. So,
are you allowed to have a side life? Are you allowed to have...
Oh, no. No.
You don't go out by yourself?
Oh, never allowed to be alone.
It's
No.
like a prison.
The other trafficked victims will be your only friend.
That's the only
how
people
it
you're allowed
works.
to hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And if you talk to other trafficked victims that aren't in your family, you will be beaten for it. And he'll follow you. I'd have him show up outside of hotels like, oh, hey. And then he's like, I'm always watching you. Don't think you can just go anywhere without me knowing. I actually thought my car was bugged at one point. Like,
Okay.
It's pretty extreme.
Before we get to that, so in the first night that you described, I think a lot of people would say, oh, I would do this, I would do that. I don't think anybody knows what they would do.
Right.
It's a fight or flight thing. You don't know which one you have in you
Exactly.
until the situation goes down. But I do believe that sooner or later, as you kind of come to your wits, the first real goal that you would have is I need to get my child and I need to get out of here.
Right.
So when you start to realize that that is the reality of the situation, what happens then?
I had 4 attempted escapes during my 6 years. And I think you learn what to do better next time with every attempted escape. I learned real quick that you can't buy plane tickets with cash post 9/11 because I got all the way to the airport with my baby and I couldn't board a plane. I think you learn to start hiding money, putting it to the side. You start learning that he's going to cut off your cell phone within 24 hours. You better hope that there's Wi-Fi. I mean, back then there wasn't really even Wi-Fi. So it's like, what do you do if you don't have a phone? You're begging people, can I use your phone? People are looking at you weird. It's like so much time passes that you just don't even feel a part of like normal people anymore.
You weren't.
No, but I mean, it feels like you don't even remember what that's like to
You didn't-
be part of like your square world.
You didn't have a conversation with anyone from the square world for that many years.
Right.
You're only allowed to talk to the other girls. And
Or
you're-
buyers.
And buyers. Are they... Because you're like, I was molested and I've had stuff happen. I didn't realize until I was probably 25 because it happened from when I was about 4 to 7, and I don't remember it. And then I remembered a little bit, and then I remembered when I was 40. I remembered more.
Right.
And I feel like it's just like my body was like, if I gave it to you all now, you'd fucking kill yourself.
Right. Totally.
So it's like letting me onto little bits and pieces. You're like, what kind of trauma do you go through? Once you're, because I feel like you say you don't remember all of it. You're not that old. This wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Like there'll be more that will come. Are you in therapy and all that kind of stuff?
Somewhat. I've had a lot of therapy. I'm not in current therapy this moment in my life, but yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of healing that's been part of my journey. I got out for good in 2007, so it's been almost 10 years. It's been 9 years for me.
And these clients, are the clients? Are they nice to you, or were there? Because I this is the worst part, hard for me to bring up now, because I have had prostitutes before in my life. When I was a pro skateboarder, it would happen every now and then.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of money, so in Vegas I just didn't have that option. But
Right.
I've seen those
Vegas
cards.
are money. Vegas is a lot of money.
Right, so I was more in Australia. I would get them, and they would be junkies, and they would be by themselves, and it was just like that. But I never thought about it until I was much older that there could
Some
be
of those
anybody
girls
there
didn't
that
wanna
would.
be there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Actually, I started using drugs to mask my shit. That's how I became addicted to crack cocaine and cocaine. So when you say a junkie by herself, you could have had someone just like me. Just because my pimp was sitting at home with my baby and I'm strung out on dope doesn't mean I want to be there.
Right,
It means
like-
that he's holding my child hostage and I have to get $1,500 tonight or I'm going to be beaten. You meet your quota and you don't come home till your quota is made.
If you don't reach your quota, he will beat you.
Or he's threatened to take my kid and leave.
Take your kid where?
He just would say, sometime, like one time I had the fever, like I had the flu, and I
Yeah.
was throwing up, diarrhea,
Yeah.
huge fever, and I called just like begging, like I can't work tonight, I'm so sick, and he would just say, "Swinging hangers, bitch," and hang the phone up on me.
Swinging what?
Swinging hangers means that I would come home to an empty closet, and my baby and
Man.
her things would be gone.
Are you in a apartment by yourself? And he comes by?
No, we live in the same house.
You live with him?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And the other women.
You live in a house with how many women?
By the time I was sold to the next trafficker, he had 3 other women. So I was the 4th girl on the totem pole.
In this house?
Correct.
So he's in charge of all of you?
Yes.
And he's got you all working, and if one doesn't do what they do correctly, they come home, and you will witness him beat her.
Oh, absolutely.
So you become sisters for sure, because this is a fucking demon that is beating all of you and running your life. So
like
all you have is each other.
Yeah, it's like Vietnam vets. You bond in the middle of trauma. I have one girl who I'm best friends with. Actually, this is part of the reason I'm here is I'm getting fitted for a red carpet gown. She's winning an award, and I get to present it to her on November 12th.
She's winning an award for what?
For her work that she does in the anti-trafficking movement.
No way.
Yeah, so helped her she got out, found me, and then I mentored her, helped her kind of through our program, and now her and I are really close. I can show you a picture.
I mean, could you ever have imagined back then that a day like this would come around?
No.
Such a trite thing to say, but I mean, what a night
She's
and day.
the only one that gets it, right? Like, I know that she knows. Because in 2006, maybe 05, the feds raided the home. And that's kind of what led to our eventual avenue for escape. It wasn't like the movies, like people coming in and it wasn't like that. Everyone goes to jail. Everyone's going to prison until we sort this out. She spent a year in prison waiting for the feds to sort it out. That's why I train FBI now. I've trained LA's undercover cops. I train cops how to comb online ads, how to interpret when there's codes that say, you can tell if a girl has a pimp from an online ad. There's codes.
So there's not everybody who is a prostitute has a pimp and is in the trafficking thing.
I mean, I would say, obviously, there's not any data or research. Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a pimp? But in Vegas, I was there for 6 years, nearly 6 years. I met thousands of trafficked women, right, through this escort agency, through walking on the streets. You get to know that's called freelancing. So when you're walking around the casino waiting for this escort service to call you, you're freelancing. That's what that's called. Huh. And you'll just sit at the casino and drink or play the video game until you see a dude come up and like, oh, you're here from business? Where are you from? Yeah. Right? That's called freelancing because you don't have to give a cut to anybody. The phone girl takes 20%. Escort service takes $1.50. Freelancing, you get it all for yourself. So a lot of girls like to freelance more than you like to sign up for an escort service.
But the pimp gets some at the end of the day, no matter what.
100% of it. You don't get a dollar. You'd be strip searched when you came home. If you stacked any money to the side, you were done.
So he will buy you clothes?
Oh, yeah. You'll go shopping.
Do you get to go shopping, or is he with you? He'll buy it with you?
Depends on how trustworthy you are. If he's found you lying, sneaking, hiding money, you will never be alone. You'll either be with him or one of your wife-in-laws at all times.
So you earn trust, and then you get to, say, go to the mall and Starbucks and then come home at a certain time, obviously.
Absolutely.
If
it's
you're
exactly
late,
how it would work.
beaten.
And sometimes I would go to the grocery store. I can remember once I went to the grocery store. He said, be 1 hour. And at 1 hour, like I wasn't done. Line was long or whatever. And he called me and I'm like, I'm getting in the car. And he said, honk the horn. Let me hear that you're in the car, bitch. And I'm like, no, I'm right here. Like click, 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 click. Right? Like, oh, so you're lying to me. So you're a lying bitch. Let's see what the fuck happens to you when you get home, bitch. And he'd hang up and you're just sick. Like, I'm going to be beaten because I'm 5 minutes late. Like, it's just trauma.
When you say beaten, because you've got to work the next day, and he's obviously to him, you're just a body. Mm-hmm. Is he worried about your face and stuff like that? Like, will he beat you in the face and then be like, "You're like, get back out there and work with the black eye"?
Yeah.
Fuck it, they don't care.
I mean, I think yes and no.
Like, is it controlled torture, or is he a fucking psychopath and a pimp?
Both, I would think.
Like, he rages out because you weren't in the car, you were out of the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's times when he would beat my body, not my face, and I'd have like fist marks on my body. And then there's times when he's just so pissed, and a lot of it, I mean, this sounds to me like a battered woman excuse, but his beatings increased after the federal investigation began because he knew we were being watched. And he got super stressed and super paranoid, and beatings got super intense after that.
So he was losing it.
He was losing it. Right. And so I would put on my blinker too soon, and he would just start pounding my face. My face had been broken in 5 places. I've been to jail 7 times. I've been hospitalized for dehydration and overexhaustion. I have 2 men's names tattooed on my back. Like, it's like an extreme 6 years of my life.
You get when dehydration, he's not giving you water?
You eat when he tells you to eat. You sleep when he tells you to sleep. For a while, he would say, there's the closet, sleep. You get 1 hour. So you'd work all day, at his legal business, laundering money through it. That's how the feds got onto us, is he was starting to launder money through a legal business. $4 million. That's what feds came in on with it. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he had to launder it somehow. So he bought a legal business. We were forced to work the legal business during the day with illegal immigrants. I had to learn to speak Spanish. And then at night, I would be forced to prostitute to keep up with his lifestyle, because he lived like a music video lifestyle.
Is he getting you drugs?
The second guy would not allow drug use. The first guy, I got strung out, and that's why he sold me. I wasn't worth his time anymore, is what he said.
The second one sold you because you kept doing...
First one sold me because I started using drugs. That was my boyfriend, quote unquote.
Okay.
And I just started using drugs because I just couldn't deal.
Right.
And
Understandable.
And so he sold me. He's like, you're not worth my time. You're too much of a hassle. You fight with all my other girls. You use up all my money. Like, I'm done with you.
And the second one allows you to do drugs?
No allow. Clean and sober. There was no drinking, no smoking cigarettes. You got to stay on your A game. You got to be looking for cops. And we would go through a training on how to look for vice, how to make sure you're not being watched, how to get the most money.
So
These guys really know what they're doing,
does that
don't
mean
they?
you needed to kick crack cold turkey in the midst of this?
I went through rehab. My first
He
pimp,
put you in.
my first trafficker put me into rehab because he loved me.
Right. Even worse.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that you had a child that was being used as the pawn to keep you around. Girls that weren't in that situation, I mean, it's hard for me to understand how you wouldn't just see daylight and run.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think there's so many vulnerabilities that cause women and young men to be exploited that it's hard to say, well, I wouldn't do this or I wouldn't do that. It's like, everyone has a vulnerability. Everybody does.
Sure, and the reality is this has been happening as the oldest story in the world, and it happens all over the world. So there's a reason. I'm
Right.
just trying to understand it.
I think that traffickers figure out what that vulnerability is. That's what that grooming time is called. That's the tactic traffickers use. We call it grooming. And they get to know each person's vulnerability individually, and then they exploit that vulnerability. So for example, the girl I was trafficked with, her name's also Rebecca. She was the youngest of a big family, and she came from a good home in Dallas, Texas. And her brother committed suicide when she was young. Family didn't talk about it. And then when she was in her late teens, and I don't want to give all of her story because it's her story to tell, not mine, but she started tampering with drugs a little bit, and the parents were like, oh no, this is what happened when our other kid went downhill, so they instantly put her in boarding school. And she just felt like they don't even care.
Right.
I'm just isolated, I have no family, like they're dead to me. And so she ran away from the girls' home, and she met a pimp that night. 1 out of 3 runaway youth are approached by a trafficker within 48 hours. 1 out of 3.
So what are they, just out there looking for them?
Yeah, absolutely. They target place where homeless youth congregate.
Oh, okay.
Are you hungry? Are you cold? You want your nails done? You want your hair? You want an iPhone like all the other friends in school?
I mean,
You're from group home to group home to group home as foster care. It's easy to lure young teens.
You said you loved him, so if you didn't have a kid, there was still a thing at the start where you were like, I hope we can patch this up and I can pay him back. So you could still have been trapped without your daughter.
Yeah.
Which means they can do it to everybody else that way as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But these did you? If somebody is mean to you that is a client, does the pimp beat him up?
No. I mean, this is the tricky part. So there were definitely all sorts of levels of clientele. There were guys that were nice to you. I had an 80-year-old man once just want to dance on his anniversary. His wife had passed away, and he paid for me for an hour just to dance with him. It was really sad. Didn't even take his money.
You didn't take his money?
No, I said it was sad that I had to take his
Oh.
money.
Yeah.
No, I'm taking your money.
Say, 'cause you're gonna
No,
get in trouble if
you
you
get
don't.
in trouble if you come
Right.
out empty-handed. But I've had hardcore Russian mafia type dudes that are super high on cocaine that can't get an erection and then want all their money back, and they're pissed after an hour of you trying, and they'll just take your purse and throw you out in the hallway and slam the door and your keys and your phone, and the money's gone. And
You can't call somebody to help you out? Your pimp doesn't come in for guys like that?
not my trafficker, no.
'Cause
Not at
he's
all.
not at that level to fuck with those kind of people?
No, he would be, but he doesn't want the police. I mean, at this point, federal
Okay.
investigation, he's not on camera
Okay.
near me. He wouldn't meet me in the same places. Like, if there's going to be cameras there, we're driving separate. I mean, he started really watching his back
Okay.
from
Right.
prosecution, for sure.
An easier thing would be to just make you clean up the mess.
Yeah. And so you would, I mean, I remember with the Russian dude, I just was banging on the door, and he was like, I'm going to call the police. And I'm like, call him. I'm going to say you raped me. And I'd rather go to jail for the night in jail for prostitution's like a freaking vacation for me. Like, just give me back my phone and my keys and we'll call it good. And he threw the purse out, but the money was gone. So stuff like that. Rough life. But there was also clients, right, that were nice. I'm not going to say they're all. I mean, I'll probably get some flack from my survivor sisters out there if I say they're all nice. Most of them, they know what they're doing. There's a lot of, celebrity clientele that I won't say here in LA, names that everybody would know, that would come into Vegas and buy girls. As you just, said from your career, it happens. And a lot of them don't care that you have a trafficker. It's just all about them and what they want, their desires and their lust. And they don't care that you have a child being held hostage at home and that you don't want to be there.
I mean, they can't know this. As a guy that has done that, I didn't know. I've always thought that if I got a prostitute, she didn't get an education like me, and she was like, I'm going to use my body to get money. Like I thought at one point I would do. I was like, if I wasn't good at skateboarding, I would be a male prostitute. I would. I've said it to Tully several times.
Yeah.
I didn't know
He
that.
still threatens to do it.
Uh-oh.
I don't. I threatened to do it as a joke, but I don't think I'll use that joke anymore.
No, it's not a funny joke anymore.
You said men are a part of this as well?
Boys are often trafficked, yeah.
When you say boys, you're talking about young kids,
The
right?
average age of entry into human trafficking for boys is 11 to 13.
So they find these guys these little boys on the street.
The truth is pedophiles exist. And so bad guys will find a way to supply that demand. Absolutely. Anytime.
Will they steal them? I mean, 11. How are you homeless when you're 11?
Well, not always homeless. I mean, anything's vulnerable. I had a class recently. We have a program online, and 60% of our students were sold by their parents, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you get drug addicted or meth addicted families that live in trailer parks. Just come on in. My kid's in the back. Just let us stay one more day for free, or pay the drug dealer off. Just have a night with my kid. Yeah, familial trafficking is super prevalent in our country. I think when people think trafficking, this is a problem with culture. Much like I didn't know, like you just said, I think there's a lot of people that don't realize. They think human trafficking is kidnapping, taken to Thailand or Cambodia, and they don't realize that, like, my daughter may have gone to school with yours. We could have been in the same line at parent pickup or sat next to each other at that Christmas play. That, like, it's not handcuffs and duct tape, that it's mental chains, it's coercive tactics, that, it's just crazy to me. It's familial. There's familial, survival, pimp-controlled, and gang-controlled trafficking. There's 4 different types that exist within an urban and rural setting in America or other first-world countries like Australia, England, Canada. First-world trafficking looks very different than it does in cultures like Thailand or Cambodia. It's just different.
So now there are we know there are prostitutes in Las Vegas or prostitutes in Los Angeles.
Prostituted people, sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, for correcting me. Well, that's my question. What percentage of the people who are involved in that kind of work are there by choice, and what percentage have been trafficked?
Out of the thousands of women I met, I knew 2 that were there by choice. Everyone else I knew had a pimp in Vegas. Everybody. It's a very
Had a pimp that forced them, or had a pimp that they
absolutely.
hired because they needed, like,
Girls don't hire pimp.
you don't need them.
No, you're lured by a pimp. You don't just pay a pimp and keep some of your money.
You wouldn't need anybody to keep you safe when you're, like,
He
in case.
determines how much money he gets.
See, I always thought girls had a pimp because in case the client was an asshole, they needed a guy to put them in check.
I think
Not
that's
true
what
at all?
that's what pimps tell us to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because when I would show up in calls and guys would be like, "You don't have a pimp, right?" What I was trained to say was, "Oh, honey, that's like the 70s. We're here because we want to be here. I'm putting myself through college."
Well, I never heard anyone say that one, but that.
I mean, look at the the TV show Girlfriend Experience that just came out on Stars. The whole premise is a girl that's putting herself through college. I was like, this show is clearly written by a buyer because they're grasping at any last chance of justification of their own conscience by thinking that's the truth.
Fucking hell. What about strippers in LA? Because I've heard this one, and thank God I got too old to be a part of it. But strippers in LA, Russian ladies that will try to suck you off in the champagne room. Like I've got stripper friends that are like, a lot of these girls now are hookers, and I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, they try to blow guys in the champagne room. I'm like, what the fuck is that? When did that happen? It's like they happen all the time. It's hard to get her dance because they only want to hang out with these bitches that want to suck them off.
Yeah.
Do they have pimps?
I mean, I obviously I can't speak to everybody's situation
But
it's a very high probability. Absolutely. I mean, strip clubs are definitely used as an avenue for traffickers to get a quick, instant clientele, especially if you're new to the city. You don't know, right? Like, when I lived in Vegas after a couple years, you have your main people, right? Like my bellman at the bellman at the at the Mandalay Bay was my dude. He gave me referrals constantly. When an Aston Martin would pull up and a guy's tipping him $100 bill in the elevator, that bellman's like, "Hey, do you want some girls tonight?" And he's calling me because he gets a 20% tip every time I cash out on my way out. Every time. Your casino hosts, the dudes they'll text you, "I got a big well down here at the blackjack table, black shirt, red shoes." And so I show up to, "Oh, hey, you think it's coincidence?" No. We are talking to each other and we are watching who has money. Absolutely. So when you don't have a contact like that and you're new to town, you're not like invited in the circle. No way. Right. So strip clubs are a place, especially if you're traveling with women. I've been sent to Dallas when my wife-in-law was in prison. I was sent to Dallas, and you start at Jaguars. That's the first place you go, and you tried to get whatever guy was buying you the most lap dances. You tried to have him meet you at the Motel 6 next door at the end of the day, at the end of your shift, every time.
Holy shit!
But my pimp sometimes would be there. Like he would just sit in the back of the club, and he's watching how many lap dances, and he's like, "That's $150. You're short. I've watched you go back there 4 times. What you giving him? Oh, you're doing it for free? Oh, you like it? Oh, you're a trick lover." I mean, that's how they talk to you.
How does somebody become this man? I mean, I'm trying to I'm understanding from your story how you become you, but how does this man exist? I mean, am I asking like how does a man become a serial killer? Is that the same fucking thing? Because how do you? It just seems like
I think
such an obsessed maniac.
It's it's really hard, and I don't want to defend traffickers by any means. It's the last thing I'd ever do. But I can tell you that when I was in the home with 4 women and 2 children, one of those children was a young man. And he was about 12 years old when I got brought into the home. And his mom had left. She ran because she was tired of getting beaten. She left him. And so 4 of us, aunties, quote unquote, raised this little boy. We took him to football. We took him to school. We helped him get ready for his first homecoming, right? Like that little boy we raised. And at 15 years old, I watched my trafficker beat him horrifically. And I remember him coming out of the room and he's like, "No, it's my bad. I shouldn't have talked back." And I'm like, "This is never your fault. Like your dad has issues." And then I went upstairs and my pimp's crying. "I'm a monster. Will you help me get anger management classes?" And blah, 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 blah. But right before that, mind you, he told me, "Clean up this blood before it stains my carpet." So I'm cleaning up the blood and then I go upstairs, see dude sitting on the floor crying. And I'm just like, I got to get out of this before my little girl gets hurt. Like this, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Like I can't do this. And part of what kept me, I think, longer, even though I felt that maybe for a year, was not leaving my sisters in prison. Like I can't leave them. I can't, they're relying on me to pay their commissary, to pay their attorneys, to pay for their houses. And if I up and leave now, then everything they've been through, their blood, sweat, and tears to buy this stuff would have been for nothing.
How do you have the money and they don't?
Well, because they're in prison at this point, and so I'm working every night.
So they got busted. They go to prison. You're still in the house with him,
right? Indictments hadn't been handed down on him yet.
So he's just like
he's waiting for an indictment to get handed out. We don't know when they're coming. Like U.S. Marshals could surround us at any moment.
And he knows that.
Yeah.
So he's about as on edge as he could possibly be.
Right, which is why my beatings got super severe the last year.
The last one left in the house?
I was the last one left.
He didn't think about getting lost?
Getting what?
Getting lost?
Leaving.
That's a good question. I think he thought that if everybody stayed quiet and he brainwashed and threatened enough or promised enough, as soon as you get out, if you just keep quiet, I'm going to retire you.
He thought the girls would keep quiet.
Yeah, okay. And they did. That's why they all did time in prison. They refused to talk.
So how does this story where you're in this house, you went to prison as well, correct?
No, I didn't end up going to prison. I ended up, because nobody talked, the only thing that could stick, so originally they came in with racketeering, money laundering, bank fraud, and tax evasion. That was the original charges that were handed down. But because nobody would talk, they only could get the women on tax evasion, which means you had to have not paid taxes for 5 years or more and had to have had purposeful evasion. So like $9,000 instead of $10,000, which is when you have to fill out your forms to the IRS. So they could prove that these women, to buy cars or buy homes, were putting $9,000 cash down, which shows purposeful evasion. So everything getting put in their name, which he did, it was not their choice, ended up screwing them. Because then it's like, we're going to get this one social really good, okay, guys? And then we're going to put everything in your name.
Didn't in a roundabout way save them?
I mean, sure, in a roundabout way, but now she has a felony. I mean, imagine how hard it is to get a job with a felony.
They don't take that away now.
Hell
they know
no.
that she was being forced into prostitution.
Now, vacatur law is not currently passed, no. It's something we're working on with the Trafficking Victims Reauthorization Act that comes up in 2017.
And now what became of him ultimately?
He did a year in prison for tax evasion, and he got out, and he's trafficking women today.
Holy shit.
Absolutely.
You know this guy's name?
Yeah, I've told the feds. They're like, unless we can like witness it, you can't just. No, we'll keep an eye. Yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
Anyway, I want to tell you about this little boy, though.
Have you ever thought about going vigilante on that whole
No,
situation?
no, I don't want to go to jail. I've got 4 kids now. I'm married. I'm doing well. I don't want to do that. But about this little boy.
Yeah.
So he ends up going to his mom's when everyone goes to prison, and
14.
I'm able to run. He's 15 at the time,
Okay.
at this point. And so this has been, 9 years. And I recently went and looked him up on Facebook, tried to see what he's doing. And I can absolutely tell he's trafficking women today. And then a sad part, it's like, what did we expect for this little boy, right? His mom was being prostituted. His dad's a notorious trafficker.
Yep.
When the feds raided the house or the legal, with the legal business, it was all over the news. So all of a sudden we had to relocate him. So at 12 years old, he lost all his friends hearing about what his dad is from the local Channel 5 news. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big deal at 12 years old, 13 years old to go through. Completely relocated cities. And now he knows what's going on in the home. And now he's watching his dad beat and be romantic with 4 different women around him with a whole bunch of money.
He doesn't know any other way.
Right? Like, it's hard to go from riches to poverty.
Even if you don't like it. For me, I found from therapy and the abuse that a lot of things that I did to myself were to come closer to the person that had done that to me all my life. And in therapy, when I realized that that was the reason that I was doing things, that made it a hell of a lot easier to stop doing them.
Yeah.
But not like I could just flick a switch and stop doing it. It still haunts me to this day that I am tempted to do things that just make me get closer to the person that started this shit.
So true.
So I could see why he would want to be there. And it's not like you have any other options. I'm thinking that it doesn't sound like he has much more of a choice, like be broke on the street or do this, because I'm sure that's how he sees it.
Right. And I mean, learning it, right? I mean, children
you
learn
know
what
the
they
ropes.
live. They know how to do this. This is easy. This will be quick money. And so I think a lot of people, it becomes generational and it becomes situational. Maybe the only father figure in that kid's life is the pimp on the local corner, and he doesn't have a dad. So many ways people get involved to be traffickers.
He goes to jail. He goes to jail for a year, and that's when you get out with your daughter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you move to another state immediately.
I moved out of the country. I moved to London, England for a year.
And then you stayed there for a year because how'd you have money?
I lived with a buyer.
What's a buyer?
I lived with a regular client of mine.
So a regular client that you knew was not an asshole, as much as he could not be.
Yeah. But obviously it got weird right away.
Because he was in love with you and you were like, I'm trying to survive.
I don't think he was in love with me. I think he demanded entertainment on a regular basis that I thought was going to maybe finally be a chance for me to get out, and it wasn't. So now I'm just his personal, entertainment, and that wasn't cool. And so then I got involved with a missionary group and finally came home to Oregon.
Do you think that you have a different understanding of men than other women do?
I think I got a twisted version of men, I'm sure.
Well, that's kind of my question is, do you think that you understand something that maybe a lot of women don't, or do you think you maybe just saw a dark sliver of a certain kind of mankind?
I don't know. I don't think it's a dark sliver. I think, unfortunately, our culture has deceived men to think that hypersexuality is normal. It's glamorized. It's cool. We'll pay for it. It's no big deal. I think that our culture has deceived a generation of men, and I think there's a lot of good men out there, probably much like you, that had they known, that they would have helped instead of fueled and paid my pimp. Right? I think that I want to believe that, but I do know that men have fantasies, and I mean, I don't want to go onto this, whole tangent about this kind of stuff, but it's like, we can't raise our kids in such a softcore porn saturated media that we can't expect some sort of long-term consequence. You raise a kid that's 4 years old, a little boy, where porn is softcore porn, what used to be considered peeking in dad's Playboy is now our mainstream media. Yep. At 15, he's Googling porn online and you're getting smut, hardcore pornography. Yep. By 25, he's acting that out, and it sure ain't with his girlfriend. Who does he act it out with? You go online. You hire someone like a pizza delivery to come right to your room.
When I grew
it's
up,
this cycle.
I thought like people that didn't get prostitutes were pussies. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to hook up with her? I remember going to Amsterdam, first time I ever hooked up with anybody in Amsterdam. My team manager pushed me through the door and gave me $50. And I remember he shut the glass door and I looked at him like, what are you doing? He's like, relax, you'll be fine. And I came out and I got like a round of applause for it.
Right.
And I didn't
It's like
know.
a rite of passage,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I mean, I've had people call the radio show and tell me that their dad paid for their son to go in there.
It's crazy.
It's a different way, but it. Yeah,
It's
I
that
feel
other
like,
side of men, I think, that women don't know. I think that it gets hidden really well from what I would call square women.
yeah, okay,
You
I'll
know
go
what
with
I mean?
that because I don't know too many square women. But yes, I
But
believe you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of women that don't realize that like men actually have some pretty extreme lustful fantasies and are okay acting those out with anyone who offers.
When I first had a girlfriend that became a dancer, and she was like, I want to be a dancer. I was like, okay, and I walked in there with her. And I remember thinking, I've lost you right here, right now. I've lost you. I had this really bad feeling about it. I was like, I don't think you should take the job. And then she became a stripper for over 10 years. As far as I know, she never prostituted. I don't really know in the end because she ended up leaving me for a security guard. But I saw another side of men there that even in my abused life, I was like, I know why you all hate us. Because I've never seen anybody try to look upside down into a girl's vagina before. I'm like, what is this guy fucking doing?
Right.
And I'm like, you think we're all that guy.
Right.
And like, and most of you, like I know Tully, I've known him for a long time. I don't think Tully ever spent a day where he put his head upside down in a strip club trying to see further up the hole of a woman's vagina. There's certain people that don't have that in them, but there's a lot of us out there that do. And those people, it's same as prostitutes. Whenever I had one, I was so horny, and it was more like you had to like me for it to work out. If you didn't like me, then there's something weird about it, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
And if there was I've had another guy in the room, like, you don't know how it works, just give him the money, and then you can do, and I'm like, I'm not doing it, dude. But I'm like, he will all the time.
But the sad part is we're taught that, like, you need to make him like you. You need to make him believe that you like him. I don't really like you. I don't really actually want to perform oral sex on you.
Yeah.
I just need the $500 because I have to meet my quota. And if I have to have a smile slapped on my face and pretend to act sexy to make you believe that so I can hit my quota, I'll win the Grammy of the year.
Can you recap real quick, Michael, so everybody knows what we're talking about? Because I need to know about foundations. I need to know everything right now because I want to be a part of this. I want to help
Sense of
out.
you.
Yeah, give me a second here.
Because, I mean, the more I go through, the more... I'm 45. I realize
You look great.
Thank you.
You do. I would have thought 35. I thought we were about the same age, honestly.
Appreciate that.
Well, your website is RebeccaBender.org.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that's a good way into all of your other stuff.
Yeah,
What are the
absolutely.
other-
I mean, what can people do?
I mean, there's many things that people can do. One of the things that we do is we run an online program for survivors of human trafficking all over the world. It's the largest one online. It's basically someone doesn't have to go live in a program and make a year commitment of finding somewhere for their kids to live, where they go get that specialized trauma and counseling and therapy that's really needed for complex compound trauma, which is what human trafficking is. So we offer services completely online, just like colleges offer classes online. Now we offer a 16-week program online. We do it via Skype. So no matter where you live, as long as you're in a stable facility or a stable home, we'll be able to provide you some services. And the other part of our program is we train law enforcement officers, FBI, and undercover police all across America. So
Because you can't go out there and help them. They'll kick your fucking ass.
who?
The girls. You can't go out there trying to help pull
Oh,
them
I go
off.
all the time.
You
I don't
do?
know. Girls like me. When you've been in the life, you got a connection with another girl in the life. They
Right.
get it. You know that I get it, and I know that you get it. Some square coming in ain't gonna be able to talk to her, but I can talk to her.
What do you think about the fact that there are? I know that the guy who runs Backpage.
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
he's just indicted.
indicted because you can't just and I guess this goes for Craig of Craigslist fame as well. You can't just let people put ads up and be like, I don't know, people can put whatever they want
Actually,
here. When
you
know
can't.
when you know full well what kind of ads are. Yes, some people are selling bicycles on Craigslist and Backpage, but there's also other more ugly things going on there. What do you think when you know? I feel like if I put an ad on Backpage that said, I sell crack, who wants some crack? Come on down, crack. It wouldn't be that long before the law enforcement realized and came and arrested me for selling crack
Right.
online, and yet we all know there are thousands and thousands of ads that are selling prostitution services.
But I don't think they know it's like this.
Oh, a lot of them do. The problem is for a while, actually, they couldn't shut Backpage down. Communications Decency Act Section 230 allows a website to not be held liable for third-party postings. And
Yes.
these Backpage is making a crap ton of money that has the best lawyers that every time people like me and, attorneys have tried to take them down, we've lost every time. And so finally, after 2 years of building a deeper investigation, I was so proud of both California and Texas. They got together and they were like, why don't we think outside the box? Instead of shutting down this website, this dude is profiting off the sale of potentially children. Why don't we just bust him as a freaking trafficker?
He's got to
And
know,
sure
right?
enough, they came down and they indicted him as a trafficker for owning the website.
He's
And
got to know.
who? The Backpage?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely knows. He was the only website out of many websites that are out there that sell people for sex. There's a ton. There's probably 10 really well-known ones. He was probably the only one that had the least amount of reporting. So most websites, they'll comb to see if it's an adult or a child. And if a child tries to get put online for sale, most of those places will shut it down and inform the feds right away. And it's their attempt at trying to ensure that trafficking isn't taking place. Does that mean pimps aren't trafficking adults? Yeah, I was 18, 19 years old. But Backpage is one of the places that has almost very rarely ever reported to FBI, which then looks suspicious. Like, are you not checking if the ads? What policies do you have in place surrounding children for sale? I mean, it was a big deal. So that was a real victory to have him indicted as a trafficker, and I hope he gets prosecuted. We'll see.
Yeah, so do I.
So you can visit our website. There's lots of resources on there. One of our best ones is called a red flag brochure. Are you dating a trafficker? It's good for parents. It's good for foster kit families. It's good for people who have teenage daughters. Ages 14 to 24 is usually the prime for exploitation. Are you dating? Are you in that grooming cycle? Like, can I look back now as a college student and see some warning signs with that first guy? Absolutely. There's about 15 things, and I put them in a brochure. It's called the red flag brochure. And that's a really helpful tool for people.
What would be an example?
2 cell phones, no job that someone can actually visit, frequent visits out of town, frequent trips out of town.
Okay, so these are real practical things. These
that
aren't
most people just wouldn't think about. But
Yes,
if 3 or more exist within your relationship, you might want to look into who this dude is a little bit further. I'm not saying he's absolutely a trafficker, but we might not know who he is, right? And so that's one of the great things about the internet. You can do a little digging nowadays. Back when I was being trafficked, it wasn't nearly as common to be able to get online and look.
Getting back to you talking to the girls on the streets, have you ever got them off the street from you having a conversation? Like, hey, here's my number, call me. Maybe because if you had somebody like you reaching out to you when you were trying to escape, try to get to the airport, and they were like, hey, come with me, I will drive you the fuck out of here right now, and we'll make sure he doesn't find you. You would have gotten that car, right?
Yeah. And I've absolutely helped on several escapes. We had a girl call us recently. She was standing on the middle of the street, middle of the night, battered. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Can you help me? Jumped in my little minivan, because I'm a mom of 4 now.
Right.
Ran up to her. She had 2 boxes on the side of the street. And she texted me a picture of herself. She said, just so you're not shocked. And I'm really glad she texted me a picture. She was black and blue, unrecognizable, beaten so bad. And so obviously I tried to hold my composure when I got there in person.
Yep.
And she said, my wife-in-law just texted me. He found out where I was on GPS, and he's about 10 minutes away. So we threw everything in my van as fast as we could. And we ran to a motel. I called my police officer friend who's in that city. He stood outside all night, and I slept in a hotel with her, cried with her, prayed with her, talked about resources, talked about the hope that there is life after this. You can overcome.
Yep.
You can do something with this. Like, it will work out. It will be okay. Just don't answer that phone, because he kept calling. I wanted to turn it off.
Can't you throw that phone in the trash?
I wanted to.
Why would
We
she
got her on a
keep that
great.
phone?
She just, it's that lifeline to other people, to her kids.
Okay.
To her. So we got her in a program right away. The next day, we took her into a program. She went to a safe home.
A program. What exactly is a program?
Program is like a safe home, like a domestic violence shelter, but there's actually shelters out there specifically for trafficked women.
Is it like sober living, but for battered people?
I mean, it's a safe home it's a residential treatment facility for victims of exploitation.
So they're all victims of exploitation
All
in
of
the
them,
home.
exactly. Yeah. So it's real specialized treatment, real specialized counseling and therapy that's specific towards that type of trauma.
Do pimps try to find those places to try and pull them back out?
Yeah, sometimes.
Because that would be like a supermarket to them.
Yeah.
They
but-
get a hold of one and talk them back into coming out again.
Absolutely. And sometimes they'll send people in to recruit. If you have a safe home that ends up like building on what they call the track, so the place where girls walking up and down the street, right? And sometimes people put drop-in centers there because they're that's their target market. So they're like, hey, we're open all night, come in and get food. It's people like me that have an org. And so they think that will be helpful. But then traffickers will send their girls in to try to recruit new girls.
Say, this place sucks, you should come back and fucking hang out with my guy. He's got mad money and you live the life.
Aren't you tired of living in the Salvation Army? Aren't you tired of eating slop? If you come with me, aren't you tired of wearing that one outfit? Don't you want to get your hair done, girl?
Man.
Don't you come with me? It's just for a little bit, because I work at a normal business, and my business is in my name.
Let me ask you
and
this.
That's what happened to the girl that I was being trafficked with. Business was in her name. She thought that she was going to get out and have a business.
I dated a girl that lived in Vegas who was a dancer in Vegas, and she had the initials of a guy on her back, and she said that he was a Russian guy.
She was being trafficked. Absolutely. Branding is the number one sign. All of my tattoos are initials of my traffickers' names.
Because when you first said that,
yeah,
I went out with this girl for a while, and she would come down. I used to live in San Diego, and it was always sort of a weird scenario of...
She was probably being trafficked.
There was something
going
about
on.
Her.
Mm-hmm.
So but I didn't pay her.
Well, a lot of times, and she may have been trying to get out. She may have been trying to see if, like my dude in London, if I'd be able to make a run and make an escape at some point. And if I could trust you, if you were going to help me, if you weren't going to put me down or put me back, or right. So sometimes it's you've attempted an escape and those people that you thought were going to help you didn't. Have you ever watched 12 Years a Slave?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the guy runs and the guy said he was going to run and he thought he could trust the white guy that was running?
Yeah.
And then he realized he had told on him so that he could become the manager. Mm-hmm. And so the next time when Brad Pitt comes around later, he's like, I don't know if I can trust you now.
Right.
That was an attempted escape that failed. I was so triggered by that movie. Couldn't even watch that ending. I was like, that's what happened. I tried to escape, tried to rely on people, fell short multiple times. So you're testing things out the next time. You're not just going quick anymore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when you talked about with the minivan and all. This is a modern underground railroad that you're talking about.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, a variety of different people that are collaborating, sure.
Is there like government ties with people like this?
Like, do politicians purchase trafficked women?
No. Does this underground sex racket have government people covering it? Like, why aren't the feds? Why isn't it shut down?
I think that there's a long systematic criminalization of women involved in prostitution. So as long as we've all been alive, if not longer, prostitutes get arrested, cops go troll and look for hookers and throw them in the patio, right? I mean, it's that mentality that's just ingrained in our culture. And so as we've started to try to get people to see potentially 90% of these women don't want to be there. It's really about shifting the way law enforcement sees these women as not just dirty hookers, but that there might actually be victims with families and kids. Like, that's hard.
How do they not know? I mean, if they
Cops?
they arrest you, they don't get like a little rundown of your life.
No,
they just
no.
like fucking junkie hooker.
Yeah,
get in there.
Especially when they're like, "What's your name?" and you're like, "Fuck you, lawyer." What's
Right,
your
because
address?
you've been
Fuck
told.
you, lawyer.
You've been told.
Yeah. What's
If
your
you-
birthday? Fuck you, lawyer.
If you legalized it, would that change anything?
Oh, no. We've seen in countries that have legalized it that trafficking has skyrocketed because it's now the legal way for traffickers to flock there.
But if you pay the pimp, he becomes legal?
It becomes a legal way for men to purchase sex. The only thing that we've seen that has really decreased trafficking is a law of decriminalization. So it's the difference between right now we criminalize it,
Yeah.
and then there's legalizing it, but there's actually something in the middle called decriminalization.
And how's that go?
Is Canada doing that?
Not yet, kind of.
Right.
A little bit. Norway does it, Sweden does it, and those are the places that have like really dropped in trafficking numbers.
And what is this?
It makes it like harsher penalties, potentially felonies, for men to purchase prostitutes. But the prostitutes aren't the ones that go to jail. The buyers do. And so you go right after the supply, you go right after the demand, and then you don't have bad guys that come to try to supply it.
Because there's no money in it anymore.
Right. But if you just keep putting the victim in jail, the buyer gets off clean free all the time. The trafficker just sits home and binge watches Netflix. It's a joke.
So basically you're telling me that prostitution is 90% people that are having sex by force. basically. Like, you might like it every now and then. You might be on enough drugs to think it's okay. Because, look, I've done things with people. I'm a bisexual guy, and I think that the reason that that I'm like this is because of the way men have been around me when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things where I've been told in my therapist is like, I will be in charge, and I will get you back for what you did to me, which is stuff that I'm doing with people which means I don't want to do it.
Right, totally.
And then I'll feel bad about it. And guess what will make me feel better about it? Drinking and getting high all day.
Totally.
Because I don't really want to think about it.
Yeah.
So
I think that there's a lot of pro-sex workers who are going to advocate that it's my right, my choice, my body, this is what I want to do. I think it's a false sense of empowerment to actually be an object. It's actually not empowering to be an object, to be like, it's actually a kind of contradictory statement, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not empowering to be something I could throw down and know it. That's not empowering to be that. Yeah. It might make you feel empowered because you got paid to do that.
At the time.
Right. And I think that people need to also talk about openly, pro-sex workers, I think, need to talk openly about they're the loudest voice because they're the only ones that get a voice. Traffic victims don't get to come on and talk about, this is my choice to be here with him, right? Because that would put him in jail. He's not allowing that. So the loudest voice because they're the only ones that get a voice, first of all. And then secondly, what vulnerabilities got them there in the first place? Were they molested as children? Were they sexually abused? Were they in foster care? Were they in poverty as single moms? Let's talk about the vulnerabilities that got you to a place to choose a falsely empowering job. Because if fair living wages, if we could actually get you a job to be like a marketing director that pays exactly what you're making in prostitution and allows you the hours, which one would you choose? Every time it's the better. It's the one that causes less harm.
Of sound mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you had that question to me, I would have said to be a prostitute.
Right, because this one's funner, more adrenaline. Yeah. But the truth is, and I think at sound mind, you're right, because higher risk of STD, higher risk of homicide, higher risk of HIV. Not going to get that as a marketing director, are you?
No.
Right? So it's like, do you really want that job forever? Like, probably not.
No.
If you had other choices and you had some healing and some trauma from potentially some things, and you had other opportunities, that you actually had choices, or you actually had privilege.
Sounds like such an impossible fight because as far as I can tell, it's more like the world is breeding more of them than of people of sound mind. I mean, the world is, the poor get poorer, which means all those mummies and daddies get broker and the system fucks them harder, which makes them want to run and turn to drugs and alcohol, which makes them worse parents, which breeds worse children, which makes those children opt that maybe being involved in sex or having a shitty boyfriend or whatever it is a better option than going to school and getting an education. Most people say if you get a real good education, you're probably not going to get a good job anyway. Right. Like, kids know that now.
Right. It's hard.
How, but I love why doesn't Obama or whoever the fuck is in charge goes, hey, before I'm out, let's just make that one rule where if you do get caught getting a prostitute, it's a felony now. I mean that. See you guys later.
Would. I mean, the thing that we've done when we've talked about decriminalization reform on a national scale, it's Europe is really big, and so why Norway and Sweden have been able to enact decriminalization law is because they're one place in this big giant European kind of union. And so we've talked on a national scale of what would happen if one or two states begin passing state laws of decriminalization, and how would that look on on a national scale for the United States.
Yeah.
And we have some states that are really close. Colorado, Minnesota, and Oregon. Really close on decriminalization.
Like legalizing marijuana. Next thing you know, a couple states start copying. A couple people are saying you're allowed to get married. Gays are allowed to get married. A couple people start copying. Yeah. It wouldn't be a reverse effect where those states completely go bankrupt and all the ones that are allowed to have hookers are flourishing.
That would be the goal. I mean, it's not a legalization. We don't want to legalize prostitution because then all the traffickers will flock there to sell their people. But we do want to decriminalize it, where we're not putting victims in jail for something they're being forced to do. Where we have social services in place for people that want out. We have social services in place for children, 14, 15-year-old girls that are found in hotel rooms. Those girls don't want to be there. And right now, sometimes those are legal age of consent. You can't tell me a 16-year-old girl who can't drive herself around and rent a hotel room wants to be here.
Where is it legal to be 16 and be
not a prostitute, but she would go to jail. She'd go to juvie for prostitution in a lot of states.
16 is the age of consent. Yeah, there's still states in America.
Many states. I actually think there's 29 states who still arrest children for prostitution in our country.
And then they go to jail for it.
You go to juvie.
And now pushed into it.
And then you're that bad kid, right? You're that one girl.
And then that becomes a vicious cycle. And here it just seems like the only obstacle that is the political optics. Now I understand when you say I want to legalize marijuana, there are people who have real opinions about. I'm in favor of legalizing marijuana, but I can kind of.
I live in Oregon.
I can understand the argument that people are making on the other side. In this case, it is simply who wants to be the politician who can have his or her words twisted into so-and-so wants to legalize prostitution. And that danger to your political career is the only impediment keeping you from saving hundreds, if not thousands of people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, we lobbied for Senate Bill 673 in the state of Oregon, which does have legalized marijuana and gay marriages. So I love Oregon. I love what we stand for. And I went to help pass Senate Bill 673, which would not allow children to be arrested for prostitution. And one of the senators actually said to me, I want to allow men 3 times getting caught purchasing a child before we ruin their lives.
What the fuck is that?
You tell me. I don't have a clue.
I'll tell you what that is. That's somebody that has no experience with it. That's all.
You're like, what? 3 times getting caught buying a kid?
If you don't know, as a guy that has had it happen a bunch of times, there's a fire in me that I understand other people don't have, where I could go crazy and kill somebody who does that. And some people are like, you need to calm down. And I'm like, that's because you don't live in my head. It doesn't ever go away.
Right.
And my scale to your scale, oh my God, it's not even fucking close. And I have felt rage that is dangerous. Like I could kill somebody.
Right.
You can't. When that person says that, that's somebody that just hasn't felt it. They don't know. I a couple of years ago, I would pull that person's fucking face apart. But I get that he just doesn't.
Yeah, he made it a $10,000 fine to purchase a child for sex, is what the law ended up being.
What do you mean?
With a get out clause, if you can't afford it, you can write a waiver that I can't afford a $10,000 ticket. So we're ticketing men and then letting them just say I can't afford it. It's not really going after demand at all. So we contacted Shared Hope International, was a part of this campaign that I was a part of for this lobby. This was 2 years ago. And they put it all over social media. Senator so-and-so wants to allow men to rape children, right? Because it wouldn't be consent if money wasn't involved. Mm-hmm. It actually wouldn't. If you didn't give me money, this would not be consenting right now. And so does that really make it consent if money's involved? So, right, things just for people, I think, to think about. And he retracted his vote after he got smeared all over social media. And so we now do not arrest children in Oregon since 2015.
But that's the only...
That's the first time
other states do still.
Yeah,
now.
I think there's 29 that don't. And I don't remember exact numbers. I don't remember the exact... I have it in an email somewhere. I could pull it up if people wanted it. But... we'll probably write a blog on it after this show now. But yeah, there's still states that don't have what's called Safe Harbor Act that still arrest children for prostitution in our country. Man. The blame is often put on prostitutes. That's just been our culture for decades and decades in America. I mean, that's what's got to shift.
People don't. I know you think people know, like a lot of people do, but I mean, I'm 45. Half of the stuff you're telling me right now is new to me, and it's changed my opinion about even my humor on my radio show is going to change because I just don't.
Thank you.
I just take that. I've just always just thought most of the girls. I've had a girl at a gym that was super hot, and my trainer was like, "You know, check that girl over there. You know her, right?" I'm like, "Yeah. I mean, I've looked at her several times. I'm well aware of this person." She's like, "It's a prostitute." I'm like, "You're shitting me." It's like, "Yeah, one of those high class ones, super expensive." I'm like, "Man, you would never guess it," you know. And I thought to myself, what a life, you know, she lives that life, and to think that maybe she's in it and doesn't think that it's the ultimate gig.
Yep.
If I met you on the street and you tried to tell me, I wouldn't believe you.
You know, I know that, and it's sad. Me and the women that I was trafficked with went to the gym by ourselves all the time, and we were considered high-class escorts. I mean, we were flown around on private jets with celebrity clientele. $5,000 a night was kind of the going rate if you were going to keep us for one full night, leave the next morning. And people don't realize that happens in all areas, all subsets and typologies of exploitation. Corruption will follow. And I think, and I appreciate you saying that, right, your perspective has shifted, and pimps aren't funny. Beating and selling women and children isn't a Halloween costume. Like, where's the pedophile costumes?
I never had that joke, but
But I mean, prostitute even, I mean, for me, it's a prostituted person. It's not who she is. It's maybe something that she's doing or something that's happened to her, but it's not who she is as a human being. And I'd love to challenge you that you're probably going to hear the opposite from other people than what I've told you today. And I just want to, encourage you and the people listening that I want you to remember that it's the traffic victim's voice who doesn't get to be heard. So you are going to hear a louder voice probably from a pro-sex worker because they get to have their voice and we don't. I think that's important to remember and to think about the vulnerabilities. I want to be here. This is empowering. But do you really? Like, what really got you here? And how did you get there? Because a lot of times when I ask pro-sex workers, how you got involved in prostitution? They're like, oh, well, I had a trafficker when I was 13. But now I'm choosing to do it because it's my body and my choice. And I'm like, so you were trafficked into this. It's like slamming a needle in your arm and then now you're a junkie. But like, there was someone that slammed a needle in your arm years ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't equate to what you're doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Are you now really choosing to use heroin?
Right.
Is that really your free will? That's
right. Or did
that?
you get stuck in a situation and get,
now you're making the best of
hooked
it.
on adrenaline and hooked on money? And
the other argument is because I have some friends that I know they do it. I have some girls in the porn industry that will do that as well. I know they do. Mm-hmm. I don't get into it. I don't ask questions. I just have seen them before with a guy, and I'm like, that ain't
Jimmy.
That ain't your. That's not your type.
Right.
That person shouldn't even be in this room with us. What the fuck are you doing? And then I'm like, okay, I figure out what that is.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. But I know those people to be scarred like me. Mm-hmm. And I know them if they were here, they'd be like, look, baby, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? I'm making things work out. It ain't no big deal to me.
Right.
And
because it's been made no big deal since you were little.
Right. Because look, it's as I said to Tully, I've said it 1,000 times. I'm like, man, if you find me from this, I would be in porn. If I didn't have kids, I'd be in gay porn. If you're going to pay me a lot of money, I don't care. Why do I not care? Because
you've become desensitized to your body being used.
Right.
Right.
Which means if it wasn't for therapy and stuff, I would say 10 years ago, if I had the balls to admit that I was bi 10 years ago, I would say to you, I like having sex. I like having sex on camera. I've said it to Telly 4 years ago. I was like, I would be in porn if I didn't have kids. I would look cool to me.
And even still, like hearing you say all of that, a lot of that would feel like your choice and feel like an empowering, fun, cool option. But when I really appreciate you talking about some of the vulnerabilities that got you to the mindset that that's okay, right? There's a rush in this. And you do get addicted to the rush, especially, right? Adrenaline junkies. And, you can get, it does become a rush. I'm telling you, when I'm sneaking in and out of hotel rooms and I'm like trying to shake the police, like, it's an exciting lifestyle.
Yep.
It feels like you're living out an Angelina Jolie spy movie, you know? And so to suddenly go to like a 9-to-5 normal job seems like, oh, heck no, man, I don't want to do that.
Right.
And I still feel like that. But that's why I get to train undercover cops. I go on Operation Cross Country every year. I'm out on the streets with girls. I'm flying all over the country speaking, working with FBI. I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to train LA's undercover. Right. When I worked and trained LA undercover cops, it was an undisclosed location and the email was like 793 at. I got there, I was like, oh, y'all are cops, like you're good.
So you've been sober for 14 years?
Yeah, since 2002.
So
December
even more
22nd.
so you need something exciting in your life because there's none of that and there's no drugs. What were you an alcoholic in the end or what were you if you don't mind me asking? That was your thing?
Cocaine, yeah.
So can you have a drink, or are you completely sober?
I can have a drink.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely. Just drugs was my main.
The
vice.
hard drugs is the thing you got to stay away from.
And for a while, I didn't want to even try alcohol because I was scared. And probably about 5
Could trigger you to do something to get back in, you would think.
Yeah, I was nervous. And so about 5 years ago, I went with a friend to like a girls' night wine vineyard thing, right? Like you're like a winery and it's like fancy, like you're a normal person. And I was like, all right, I'll go. And then like, can I be normal, right? It's kind of how I felt like, can I do this? Can I fit in with like normal women? And I think when people see me on the streets, they wouldn't probably know that I've had this crazy life. So I just wanted to see if I could feel normal. And I had a glass of wine and it didn't affect me at all.
So only 5 years ago you've started?
Drinking wine primarily. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go to the bar and have a cocktail.
Right.
No, not at all. I might have wine like at a vineyard with friends, but that's like the extent of my alcohol use.
Man,
Well, good for you. I mean, I'm glad that's working out. I think you deserve a glass of wine every now and again.
Thank you.
How long did we talk for?
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour and a half. I
I
think.
mean, this is the most amazing story I've ever heard. I can't. You've changed my. I want to. I try to do things to help the world, because I know I have listeners, but this is another thing that I feel, especially my demographic of listeners, I really don't think they know. Because if I don't know, agree. They don't know.
That's why I agreed to come to your show when I was in LA, right? Because I'm like, these people that probably listen potentially could be buying.
Yeah, yep. I would assume that this is hitting home for some number of people who are listening to this. And
I think here's the thing that you're going to hear in the movement that I'm a little bit different than a lot of survivors, and if I get slack for this, whatever. A lot of survivors of human trafficking will call most buyers rapists. They're all rapists for money. They're all these awful monsters. And I think the reality is we live in a culture that's deceived men, and we need to start sounding the alarm. And I think there's a lot of good men who have been deceived by media, by music videos, by normalcy, by the glamorization of commercial sex. And I don't think they're all rapists. I don't think they're all monsters. I think they're good men who are good dads and good husbands and good brothers and good friends. And I think they've been just equally tricked by movies like Pretty Woman and right? Like,
and then there's the men that have been emotionally scarred themselves as children that would go and do this more often. Because I feel like there was a time there where I was doing heroin and I was hanging out with prostitutes.
Right.
And that wasn't because I was trying to be in a music video. That was because I was a sad fucking.
Right. Absolutely.
I thought I could relate with them.
Right.
Really.
And then you do get, I think, a percentage of men who purchase prostitution, women and men in prostitution, that are what we would call prolific hobbyists. And that's where you're going to get your serial rapists, your serial killers, your Jeffrey Dahmers. I mean, there's a good percentage out there that are prolific hobbyists that want to do horrific things to you, that pay you extra to do horrible things to you and have horrible things done to themselves. And you get in a whole nother weird category for me at that point. But I think the majority of like guys who are going to the bachelor party at Vegas and purchasing a girl, I really think they don't know. I really think they think this is the cool thing to do. Yeah. And it's the normal thing to buy a hooker in Vegas. Like I think they think that's okay.
Yeah. No,
I
know
think
that.
They're like a prolific serial rapist. You know what I mean? I think there's a different level of buyer.
And I've been guilty of that. Just hiring. I don't even want to say the circumstances, but a bunch of guys went. It was like, we've never really done the full Vegas thing. One time, should we do that? And that involved getting a girl to come and dance in the room. And we were all so naive that when the dance was over, we're like, "Where'd she go?" And I was like, "Oh gosh, she's in the bedroom. I think we're supposed to take this to the next level." And we're like, "Oh my god, we were going crazy just getting a dancer here." And now I think, well, what was? Maybe she was really hoping to get extra money out of us because she had a quota to meet that night.
Yeah, we always would go to the bachelor parties and push the best man. Like, don't you want to get your best? Don't you want to get your boy a happy ending?
Right.
And we would target you guys to get you all pitch in to pay $500 to go get the bachelor a happy ending because I need to meet my quota.
Right.
Every time. And the girls that are coming with me are all my wife-in-laws. You don't get to bring in outside girls. So all the other girls, the blonde and the brunette, those are all my wife-in-laws, and at least in our mind, well, then the whole home, quote unquote, gets the same amount. That's why you come together, because then if you're both getting 500, then the home gets 1,000. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd were allowed to call your wife-in-laws. So oftentimes, girls that show up in pairs, or you see in pairs in Vegas, they're being trafficked together.
Gotcha.
Devastating.
Well, I hope.
Absolutely riveting, but fucking devastating. I hope everybody that's listening to this. Share this information with your friends. If you unless you want to tell your friends to listen to this podcast as well, but tell your friends. And I know that there's a lot of guys out there that might be young that are listening to it. Well, not the hooker I'm calling. What if it is, man? I mean, let's say it's 90. What if it was 50? What if it was fucking 20%? Is it worth risking having a girl that could potentially be gone through anywhere near this shit? Would you want to have sex with her? Would it be that necessary? Next time you think you're going to go out and you get drunk, think about this before you get drunk, so that when you are drunk and your friend brings up something stupid like "let's do this," I can't believe that it's all like this. But it's not. It's obviously not a lie. It really is all like this.
Right. You would tell your buddy. No matter how drunk you are, if your buddy was like, "We should go try shooting up heroin for the first time tonight," you would be like, "No, dude, you're drunk. That's crazy."
Right.
You need friends I've had. I've had both those offers.
You need to mentally file this in the same category. And Rebecca, I feel so bad for asking you to relive all of this stuff, but I thank you for being emotionally open enough to actually relive this stuff and talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like doing this. I think because we're the smaller voice, I think we need people that will stand up and say what really happened. And it's scary to come forward because you're afraid sometimes that there'll be recompense by the trafficker that's out there. So a lot of people that even are free, and they're afraid. They're afraid to be known.
Stay low. Yeah, keep a
and
low
at this
profile.
point, like, I wish dude would come because now I know enough FBI that I could finally get him back. No, that'd be my vigilante side.
I get that.
I'm pulling for your vigilante side.
But feel free, again, thanks for saying my website, and we have lots of resources on there. People can learn about coercion and force and red flags, and they can get a training. They can invite me and some of our survivor speaker and team to come do a training in their community, to come train, if they're involved, whatever their circle of influence is. Sometimes it's a variety of, law enforcement or doctors or nurses, whoever they know, schools. We do assemblies for kids. So just want to get the word out there, especially for the next generation, to talk about this hypersexuality that's out there as a whole and the detriment that it can bring to their futures. So, yeah.
Okay, let's remind everybody all your stuff again. Your book is Roadmap to Redemption. Your initiative is the Rebecca Bender Initiative, and your website is RebeccaBender.org.
Yeah, that's my first book. I got a second one coming out later this year. I might call you on that.
Yeah,
we're trying to turn that into a TV series, which is why I'm here in LA a lot. So.
All right,
we'll
cool.
come. Yeah,
give us a
you're
call.
welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yep.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Ellistronics.
This has been the Ellistronics podcast.
Ellistronics.
Yeah, boy. I'm going to go take a shit in your mom's fish tank.